Let's look at your organization's mission. It seems the whole agenda of the EDL is against Islam. What is really wrong against Islam?
It's against Islamism, the spread of Islamism. We've been waiting for politically minded people to sit around tables and solve these problems. I'm just a working class lad from Luton Town, and we formed out of years of frustration and nothing changing. And from what we can see, there's more Islamic extremists in this country now than there's ever been. It's growing at a faster rate. It's got more funding from Saudi Arabia. It's going more 7th century. So we just formed to try and highlight, and basically when we go on the streets, it's like a cry for help for people to listen to how we're living. And wherever Islam is spreading in massive numbers, I'm not saying these two men I've spoke to this morning seem like great gentlemen. Some of the best people I've met through growing up in Luton Town are Muslim. But there is a problem in their ideology. There's a problem. It's not integrating. It's not working. It's not working in Britain. It's not working in Europe. Wherever we see it around the world, if we look to Nigeria, we see mass murder. We see Christians being blown up. We see Christians being blown up on Christmas Day. We see Sudan. We see Lebanon. We see Egypt. We see Pakistan.
Boko Haram in Nigeria. Sorry to go. Boko Haram in Nigeria also blows up all
innocent
the Muslims.
I know.
But it's like your idea of Islamism. Can you define it so that we'll really get where you're coming from?
7th century Islam, taking it back to 7th century oppression against non-Muslims, a fascist ideology. But we see some people calling for reform, and we don't say that every Muslim is following, like he said, he knows his Quran, but the way he knows his Quran is going to be completely different to the way many other Muslims interpret the Quran. Many other Muslims interpret it. And when you say is it synonymous, there's certain verses, whether it be 9:5, where obviously I'm not a scholar, but when it says things like, when the most sacred months has passed, slay the idolaters wherever you find them, and take them captive, besiege them, prepare for them in ambush, but if they repent, when you read that, that sounds synonymous with terrorism. You then start reading certain things and thinking, well, that's where it's coming from. And if it's not coming from Islam, then why are there 18,000 terrorist attacks since September 11th?
Okay, let's...
You find them, and then it goes, for those who have remained true to their covenant, then maintain that covenant with them. And even then, for those who ask for safety, then escort them to a place of safety for pagan Arabs. So continue reading that Quran. Don't just give us sound bites, Tommy, because it's very misleading. You're misleading your own people.
Maybe you should have told, maybe you should have told that to the man who went on the murdering spree in France, who used exact quotes from the Quran to back up all of his murders on the videos. Once he showed the murder, he showed the quote from the Quran as to why he done it.
And Tommy, don't you think that...
So maybe you need to make sure people are following your religion better.
No, but he was saying...
Because if I read that and I read it like that, then the man that went and killed loads of Jewish children and backed it up with quotes from the Quran, saying this is why I done it, and he actually specifically named why he done it and the quotes. Surah 533, there's loads of them you can pick up which basically say chop your hands off.
And I can also respond to that, and also look at Anders Breivik. Yeah, Anders Breivik, he wasn't a practicing Christian, right? He said it, but he used his Christianity to underwrite why he should have this holy war against Muslims, and that's what I'm saying. Everyone uses their religion.
I want you to quickly talk about Anders Breivik.
Yep.
Yeah, just like Abdullah just said, Anders is not a Muslim. What if he was a Muslim? I'm sure your party would have raised something.
We say about
Why don't you talk about Anders?
We say about terrorism, yeah? That's one man. I don't see Christians, Sikhs or Hindus blowing things up worldwide on a daily basis. You just don't see it.
I can give you
reports. You talk about Anders Breivik, and you've introduced us as far right, yeah? We're not far right. There's nothing far right about our organisation. We welcome everybody. We call everybody into our group. Anders Breivik, when he went on his killing spree, there was this big media campaign to link him with us. Yeah? That he was linked to us, and in order to demonise us as a movement, on page 1438 of his dossier, he describes us as naive fools. He says we believe the democratic process can solve these problems. He basically hated us. He explained why he hated us. He said that we have members of non-European and African background as leaders, and for this reason, and we will. He says our ideologies can never be reconciled. That's what he said. But yet there's this big media campaign to link us with him. The man was a monster.
He said
the man was a monster.
He supported you guys, and he supported you.
Yeah, he did.
The other text. Let's not ignore the other text.
No, he did. It's like in the early days of his 2-year manifesto.
So don't forget we have somebody on the telephone. We've got somebody, Raza, on the telephone. Raza. Hello, Raza.
Yes, hi there.
Raza, we've been talking about the text from the Quran. Do you think there is a correlation between terrorism and jihad that we saw in the Quran?
No, the only correlation that I've seen so far is the number of verses that Tommy Robinson reads, the more his idiocy increases. Because anyone can tell, as Brother Abdullah Andalusi very clearly stated, that when you look at it in context, it's very clear that Islam is not a religion of war. But here you have a complete idiot who keeps coming back and saying that Islam is the problem, Islam is the problem. If you want to talk about problem, talk about terrorism, let's talk about Anders Breivik. Let's talk about those soldiers in Afghanistan that put quotes from the Bible on bullets when they were shooting children. Let's talk about the fact that George Bush said that he felt ordained by God to go on the Iraq war. If you want to talk about terrorism, we're the biggest victims of terrorism. Absolute rubbish.
Raza has called for jihad in Palestine, by the way.
Okay. It's just like you support Israel killing Palestinians.
Calm down.
That's very clear. No, I'm not going to calm down because all you do is absolute rubbish, trying to come across like a reasonable person.
Well, maybe you need to explain that to your fellow Muslim brothers. I'm not blowing anyone up.
Islam. Talking complete rubbish all the time. No, don't talk to me about rubbish. All you do is for complete rubbish.
Raza, I think Tommy has a valid question he wanted to ask you. That you were saying it on the ground. Tommy, you wanted to ask a question.
I said I read that you called for a jihad against in Palestine.
No, let's make it very clear what I said. I said Zionists are evil dogs.
Yeah, evil dogs. You called for jihad against them, a holy war.
What you said was this. You said you support Israel's right to support itself, which means to support making a wall around Palestinian people, making checkpoints, and forcing Palestinian women to give birth at Israeli checkpoints. So that's what you said. I said Zionists are dogs for doing that. There's a difference.
And you called for a jihad, so we have a moderate Muslim on the radio who calls for jihad.
Very clear. Don't talk absolute rubbish. I said that every human being is within their right to defend themselves, and whatever quote you're referring to, you don't have to quote. You're saying random stuff. Focus on the people that fight back when they are the victims of terrorism. Muslims aren't terrorists. We're the biggest victims of terrorism.
Who fight back? He was talking about September 11th. So the people who fought back on September 11th were
victims. Well, hang on. I didn't say that they were fighting back. I said people in Palestine, when they fight back, but they are victims, they are labelled terrorists, but the Israelis aren't labelled terrorists when they clearly are.
There is an image, I agree there is an image problem there, but it's like your party is sometimes labelled as a party of racist dogs, gangsters, and whatever. Don't you think that the same problem?
Even gangsters have standards.
The same problem Islam is having with that image of terrorism, your party is also having.
It's nonsense because we've blown no one up, we've killed no one, planted no bomb. We used our democratic...
Yeah, no, you've only punched a few people during demonstrations.
Do you want to let me talk, or do you want to carry on screaming erratically down the phone? Anyway, yeah, we've killed no one, we've attacked no one, we've blown up nothing, we've attacked no one, we've done nothing like that. We go on the street and we use our democratic right to peacefully protest. We're smeared racist. They call us racist. I hate racism. Islamism, Nazism, opposite sides of the same coin. Both fascist. Nazism has been eradicated. Islamism is flourishing like a wildfire across our country. Wherever we look in the world, that's what we see. We see bombs, we see murder. That's not... I'm from Luton Town. We had the fertiliser bomber. We had the 7/7 bombers get on. We had the Stockholm bomber. We had... This is from one little town where I live, where I've grown up. We had another 4. My auntie's next door neighbour last week was arrested for planning to blow up the Territorial Army. 4 Muslims 3 weeks ago arrested for planning to plant more bombs. Now, it's not my fault. So then when we want to talk about these issues and we're angered by them, you talk about grooming. The grooming and systematic rape.
Oh, God, let's talk about the grooming then.
Yeah, there's no 12-year-old Muslim girls getting raped by 20 Christian men in this country.
Let
me talk about it because I'm talking.
Raza, I'll get to you very soon. Let him finish.
There's Christian girls, right? Not just Christian, non-Muslim basic girls being raped and pimped across the country, right? And we talk about grooming there, and then we talk about the reasons why. And people, again, we look and we see it linked to Islam. And the reason why we see it linked to Islam, because when we ask, if I can ask one of the Muslims, how old was the Prophet Muhammad when he had sexual...
Here we go, I knew it was going to come back down, even though you think...
Can I ask this gentleman?
Raza, let's have Abdullah respond to that, please.
How old was the Prophet? Just simple, how old was the Prophet?
No, let me respond, please. You're going to skirt around. Are you going to let me respond? Yeah. Are you going to suppress my freedom of speech?
Abdullah.
No, go on.
All right then.
It's Raza who's shouting.
Right. Well, now, basically, what we're seeing is some guys in Rochdale used alcohol and they committed fornication with some white women, and we see this, right? Is alcohol and fornication allowed in Islam? No. It's forbidden. I challenge you to find me any verse of the Quran or hadith or anything, yeah, that says that drinking alcohol and sex outside of marriage is allowed in Islam. It is not, sir. So I think you'll find that you're trying to now label these guys who are now adopting a